I know I felt welcome. My kids were welcome. I just met a lot of great people there. Okay, I just want to let everyone know real quick, the streaming platform that I use changed their settings. And so if you're just now seeing this, I'm sorry. But yeah, everybody's like, it starts at 8, right? Yeah, sorry guys. Y'all should be able to see everything now. But anyway, back to Beachfoot. Yeah, I had a really great time. Everybody was really welcoming. I met a lot of great people, made a lot of great contacts. You guys put on a really good event.
Well, thank you. We were happy to have you there.
Yeah, it was, I don't know. I definitely want to go back. I know Barb asked me to speak at next year's event. So,
oh, great.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. But I'm just looking forward to seeing everybody again. That was really fun. Okay, so now that we're actually streaming, can you tell me what got you into the Bigfoot topic?
What got me into Bigfoot? Well, my baptism, if you will, into the the Bigfoot realm was rather abrupt and unexpected, as I'm sure it has been for some of your listeners. I was not a believer in Bigfoot or Sasquatch, and even as somebody who's grown up all their life in the Pacific Northwest, of course you hear about it, and it's I just relegated it to some kind of a crazy campfire story for the most part. You know, I do a lot of hunting and hiking and fishing, and never seen anything. So my little epiphany happened on April 3rd of 1993. I was training with the Oregon Army National Guard, and we were in the Coast Range just east of Seaside, about 5 or 6 miles between Seaside and Saddle Mountain. And that particular day, we had permission to use some private timberland to do some very large explosions. As a combat engineer, we use a lot of explosives in our training and our duty. So this particular Saturday, we had gone up and we had 3 different sites to blast at, different scenarios at each site. And we took care of the first 2 sites. It's probably 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a beautiful day for April in the Coast Range. Mm-hmm. And we had a cratering charge, which is like 250 pounds of ammonium nitrate that we had been soaking in diesel fuel for several hours. And basically a cratering charge is used to like blow a road in half so nobody can use it. Anyway, we set the fuses, and obviously the SOP is to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
I think we had about 11 minutes to get out of range. And so we'll jump in the rigs. There's 2 Humvees up front, troop transport, what we call deuce and a half, as a third vehicle. And then the commander's Humvee was taking up the rear. And so I was a passenger sitting behind the driver, and because it was a nice day, I had the window open, and I'm just kind of had my arm out the window. And because I did hunt that area, it was just natural for me to be looking about the countryside to try to see, you know, deer, elk, whatever. And as it happened, we started into this kind of a sweeping right-hand turn, and the tree line lowered. There were some larger trees that we were in, but then we came into an area they just replanted, so it was pretty low. And it gave us a direct line of sight to down toward where the second quarry was, the quarry we had detonated maybe an hour before. And what caught my eye was these 3 very dark figures standing right out into the gravel pit. I mean, when I say dark, I mean I assume they were black. But against that kind of light gray basalt background, the contrast made him really stand out. My first thought was, what the heck are those people doing down there?
Yeah.
I didn't say heck, but I was all thinking, it's in my head, but I'm like, because when we do this stuff, because of the danger involved, we don't let people wander around willy-nilly. I mean, everybody's got to be together and accounted for. And so when I saw it, I'm like, what the hell are they doing? And then I looked, and the more I looked, the more I realized I'm not looking at people. Aside from being jet black with apparently no clothing on, which you would have been able to make out from that distance. Their silhouettes were very unhuman, if you will. I mean, yeah, they were standing on 2 feet, but these arms were way too long. I mean, they hung down between the knee and the ankle, and the legs were disproportionately long as well. But their head sat squarely on the shoulders without a real discernible neck. I mean, these things had trapezoids that probably started at their ears and just went straight out to the shoulders. They all looked like bodybuilders, really. Yeah. The one in the middle was maybe a head taller than the two on either side, and the ones on the side weren't short at all by any means. The one in the middle I estimated about 9 feet tall, easily 4 feet across, if not more. And but what I could make out was this barreled chest, and it tapered down to the waist. So I mean, they would have been great football players for sure. Yeah. But the main thing that convinced me I wasn't looking at people was the fact that the taller one in the middle stood there like a statue, didn't really even move. The two on either side of it were doing this rocking side to side, swaying back and forth like they're shifting weight from one foot to the other, and in the process, these long pendulous arms are swinging below their knees. And this wasn't like a 5-second or whatever, something ran across in front of my car. I think it was a Bigfoot thing. I watched it for nearly a half a minute, 25 seconds easily. And while 25 seconds doesn't sound very long, look at your watch for 25 seconds. Yeah. Trust me, you'll get bored real quick. But 25 seconds of seeing what I saw, that seemed like an eternity. Yeah. And I just went, through this very, the surprise of seeing people, or what I assumed were people, to realizing what I saw. There was a moment of, I don't know, I didn't want to believe it. I tried to think it's got to be anything but what I'm seeing, but I finally settled into what I was seeing. I can't unsee it. So 25 seconds passed by, and we rounded another corner, and I just kind of collapsed back in my seat, and I really didn't know really how to process it. There was that initial denial, and then it was like, oh my God, and then it's like they're gone. Yeah. And 1,000 questions are swirling in your mind. Right. What are you going to do with this? I mean, have you seen something that's scientifically, historically important, and what do you do? Do you dare speak out about it? And I kind of fell into that camp, which I believe about 1 out of 10 people do, which is just keep it to themselves. Right. And like I said, Todd, just file that one away, in your own little personal file. And anyway, so we got down to the staging area, which wasn't that far away, actually, a couple hundred yards. And my first instinct was to get out of the vehicle while the 2 vehicles behind me were still coming in and positioning themselves. I wanted to see them again. So I started jogging back up the road, and I went as far as I dared. Again, with that 100% accountability rule applied to me as well. So I could not leave view of everybody. I went as far as I could, and I'm standing there on my tiptoes trying to look over this kind of a berm that kept me from seeing the quarry directly. And while I'm doing that, I hear somebody call out my name. Somebody said, "Hey, Neiss," and I look over to my right, and here's Sergeant Martin coming up to me. He goes, I said, "Yeah," and he goes, "What are you looking at?" And I dropped my hand down to my side, and I said, "Nothing." And he just kept walking up. He's smoking on a cigarette. He keeps walking up to me, and he gets right up to me, and he looks me straight in the eyes. He goes, "I don't suppose you saw what I saw down at that second blast site." And I wasn't going to say it. So I said, "I don't know, Jeff, what did you see?" And he proceeded to say, "I saw 3 dark, huge, I don't know, Bigfoot, I guess." And of course, at that, I went, "Yeah, I saw him too." You know, and I really didn't need Jeff's corroboration because, again, I'll never be able to unsee what I saw. But it was kind of, it felt good to know that somebody else had seen it, you know?
Oh, absolutely, to have that verified and validated.
Yeah.
So whenever you saw them, I just had a quick question. Whenever you saw them rocking, did you feel threatened at all, or did you?
Oh, not at all.
Was
not
it just
at all,
they were?
The distance was, I just measured it on Google Earth using the measuring tool. And I don't know why I didn't do this a long time ago. But it's 282 yards or 282 meters. Okay. And there was a ravine between us. So I think they were a little anxious because they realized we were the source of these explosions, and they were very curious, and they came to check on us. I talked with Dr. Henner Fehrenbach, who's a primatologist, about it at the time, and he said that rocking back and forth, he says, that's very common with primates who feel anxious or threatened. So anyway, I didn't personally feel threatened. I'm in a vehicle, and we were just, they were far enough away. But I'll say this, a lot of people might think that 282 yards is far off. Well, in the military, we train to shoot with open iron sights, no optics, at 300 meters. And in that, we're firing at human-sized half torsos, if you will. So from like the belt line up, human size. So our targets are maybe, I don't know, 3 feet tall. It's just the upper half of them. They pop up, and we shoot them, try to knock them down. And I can shoot those 300-meter targets all day long. I missed the 150-meter ones. I don't know why, but I can always hit those. I don't know. I was always good at those long-distance shots. But but anyway, if I can make out a half of a torso, a human-sized torso at 300 meters, I can certainly make out 3 full-size 8-foot, 9-foot torsos out in the open on a clear blue day at 282 meters. So anyway, just getting back to follow up on this witness part, is at that time I was a traditional guardsman, and that is where you have a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday job. You volunteer to train 1 week in the month, 2 weeks in the summer, that kind of thing. Eventually went active duty, but back then that was the deal. And so the next drill would have been in May, or the first week of May. And I was amazed to find out that we had 2 more soldiers come forward and admit to having had the exact same encounter. I mean, it was identical. 3, same description, 3 individuals, and you know, multiple animal sightings. I mean, multiple Bigfoot sightings are fairly rare. multiple eyewitnesses, in this case 4, of multiple animals is really rare. And then, of course, you take into account the activity we're doing. So it makes that sighting a little unique. I consider myself lucky. I don't take any credit for it, but I can only say this. I to this day, it amazes me how 25 seconds changed the entire course of my life since that time. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be where I'm living today. I wouldn't be married to who I'm married to. I wouldn't have done so many of the things I've done, and we wouldn't be talking right now. So, I mean, I've been looking ever since. It's 28 plus years now, and I'll now that I'm retired, I've got a little more time to do that. But it's a fascinating study, and being a knower versus a believer,
right,
gives you, I think, a little advantage because you kind of look at things from a different perspective, and I think your eyes are maybe a little wider open than what they would have been if you just kind of hoped they exist. But anyway, that was my initiation, and I've been researching ever since.
Okay, so you had your sighting, you had it corroborated by other soldiers. Mm-hmm. So that's first of all, 25 seconds is a lot more than most people get with a sighting. And then you had it validated. So you're already off to a pretty good start. So where did you go from there? Like, how did you get into the research part?
Well, it's funny because I can't remember the last time I had been in a library. I'm 35, or at that time, 34 years old. I made a beeline to the library. And I had to fill out paperwork just to get my card so I could check out books. And I went to the library. I wanted to check out everything I could find on Bigfoot. I didn't even know it existed, but I found there's quite a bit of books out there on the subject. I never watched the TV programs and never read anything on the subject. Now I've got an appetite for it, and so I walked out with as many books as they would allow me. I think 10 books or something. They probably thought I was a bookworm, but no. Anyway, I wanted to find out the latest, greatest, newest information on the subject because now I'm hooked. And I consumed those books pretty quick, and little did I know I would come to meet a lot of those authors and become friends with them. And but at that time, I was a rookie. I'm just like, this is for me. This was personal for me. I really didn't have any intent to go public at all. A funny thing happened a few months later, though, and I started thinking about data on these creatures. And I kind of did a 180. Instead of looking for the newest information I could find, I'm thinking, these things didn't come around just when us Westerners or Europeans came around. They've had to have been here for a lot longer than that. So I started looking for the oldest information I can find. And of course, that's going to take you into the Native American or First Nations realm. And without a written language, it's challenging. But I have over the years made friends with a number of different tribal members, and we've been here 300 years, maybe. They've lived symbiotically with these creatures for at least 19,000 years. So when you put that on a scale, it's like a no-brainer. They have the knowledge. So anyway, it wasn't until I don't know. I saw an advertisement. Swear to God, in the Oregonian newspaper, in the help wanted ads, that had large font and bold font the word Bigfoot. And of course, I went right to it.
Laser beam.
Yeah, I was like, what? And then I checking it out. It says Bigfoot Research Organization seeking field researcher for work in the field. Blah blah blah. Well, at this time I'm a vice president of a shipping company, and I'm not interested in it. But they had that number, and I can't make this up. It was 1-800-Bigfoot, right? And so I thought, what the hell, you know? A lot of witnesses, especially those like at that time myself, hold this experience to close to the chest, and trust me, it eats you alive sometimes, because you're always looking for an outlet, somebody that you can trust, somebody that would take you seriously. And so I saw this as my opportunity, and it just happened to be the Bigfoot research project that was headed up by Peter Byrne in Parkdale, on just the other side of the mountain, Mount Hood from me. And I called, it went to recorder. I just said, you know, I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're legit, but I experienced something. If you want to hear about it, here's my number, call me back. And they did. And that's when, well, initially I met one of his field researchers, and I would come to find out that's kind of how Peter works. He's not the first one out of the box. He always sends somebody to try to debunk it, or try to at least qualify it. And then he would come out if his field researcher said, yeah, I think that's legit. And so eventually I did meet Peter, and we've been friends ever since. He's still alive at 96 and still going in the field, believe it or not. He goes out and sets up cameras, and I swear to God, he's going to outlive all of us. But amazing man. Anyway, he had asked me at one point he said, Todd, there's this TV show called Unsolved Mysteries, and I'm going to be on it, and they've asked me if you would like to be on it. And I'm like, okay. And I'd never gone public. So right. It was like, and actually I didn't sleep very much that night, because I'm thinking this is a huge step to go to a show that you know, millions of viewership, and I'm like, do I really, you know, because I'm like family man, I'm a non-commissioned officer in the military, I'm a vice president of a company, worked hard for my reputation. Do I really want to put it all out there and risk people questioning my honesty, my sanity? And I don't know if I flipped a coin the next day or what. I promised I'd be there, and that was kind of what drove me. But eventually I went up there and did that, and it's just kind of snowballed since then. I've done over 30 TV shows and documentaries, and countless speaking engagements at conferences, and you know, I like it. And people that have known me for a long time, they know I'm not prone to coming up with crazy stories like that. So, and anybody who doesn't know me, who cares, right?
Yeah. I mean, pretty much. So you met up with other researchers. You investigated this further. At what point so I'm guessing you were going out in the field and you were researching. At what point did you decide that versus chasing down reports, you should just stick with one area and kind of mine that area? Because I know that's what you do now.
Well, it's funny. I just had this conversation earlier today. You know, people have to understand, you don't find Bigfoot finds you. And your best MO, I would say, is to get into an area that's had a lot of activity. Technical equipment is optional. I prefer to employ it. I've got seismic ground sensors that nobody else has. I have infrared cameras. I have full spectrum color night vision cameras, motion sensors, blah, 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 drones, all that, you know, and of course, digital microphones and recorders. I kind of like to to get that stuff out there, because you only get one shot, and you don't want to miss it. And anytime you can be alerted ahead of time that something's in the area, then you can kind of train your attention that way. But the main thing is, you get into an area where there's been some recent activity, and there's actually one less than 15 miles from here that we just got back from spending 3 days up researching, and had some results. But think about it. This species knows the terrain. They're built for the terrain. As far as they're concerned, we look at mountains, they see them as flat. It doesn't slow them down a bit.
Right.
And their senses are more heightened. We get used to being around all kinds of different audible distractions and visual distractions, and so they're attuned to their habitat. And trust me, they hear you, they see you, they smell you long before you even know they're around. And even if you did lock eyes on one and you tried to chase it down, hold my beer, I'm not going there. But if you did, you're not going to catch one. You're not going to catch one.
No.
So let's take that right off the list. Okay, you're not going to catch a Bigfoot. You're not going to sneak up on a Bigfoot. What you need to do is get in an area where there's some activity. Again, optional. Place some equipment out in the field around your base camp. Go for walks in the daytime. Go looking for evidence. Look for tracks. Look for scat, hair, whatever you might find. Listen. Definitely listen. I've killed more deer by hearing than by seeing. It's just a fact. Your ears are your best tool, but listen, because they do make sounds. They make a pretty wide variety of sounds. I heard some stuff back in Nebraska in October that it was just phenomenal. And we can get into that if we've got time. But anyway, get in the area, look around, and then a lot of people, and I'm kind of along this line too, is put out some quote unquote enticements.
Right.
Whether it be, people call them gifting things or whatever. But we know as hunters, bait is a very great attractant. So put some things out, but not just food wise, sound wise, visually put out things that might get their interest. For instance, let's go visual. A chemical light stick makes no noise. It's not anything that's really frightening,
Right.
But why not just before sunset, go put out some light sticks, if you will. Different colors hanging from the trees or fishing line or whatever. It's innocuous. It's non-threatening. It just may pique their curiosity to the point where they're going to come in and investigate it. I've known people to do. I mean, of course, you employ the conventional tactics when it comes to hunting, but in the case of Bigfoot, we use a lot of unconventional tactics as well.
Right.
And it's, nobody's got it right yet. So, got to kind of think outside the box.
Right.
And I've known people to hang like CDs on fishing line.
Yeah.
Because as the CD spins and the sun hits it, it puts off a rainbow. Wind chimes, again, non-threatening, but still enticing. So you want to kind of pique the different senses of these creatures, because they are curious. I mean, just the fact that these three that I saw in 1993, let me back up a minute. So people, and I would agree, I think most people agree that if you're sending a mushroom cloud, a very loud explosion, send a mushroom cloud 2,000 feet in the air, create a miniature earthquake. Most animals in that area are going to go, 360 degrees the opposite direction. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So given that, why did it take only an hour? And again, they could have been there sooner. I'm just saying that's when I saw them. They might have been there a half hour later. But to be able to overcome the innate fear that most animals are going to have in such a situation, to overcome fear with curiosity and maybe protection or security as well. They want to know what's going on.
Right.
But to be able to do that tells me they're inquisitive, and inquisitiveness or curiosity tells me intelligence.
Yeah.
They want to know. They want to know.
I definitely think I think you're dead on. They are intelligent. So I am from Altus, Oklahoma, which is right next to Fort Sill Air Force Base. And so Fort Sill is right next to the wildlife refuge, and and they kind of mesh. There's the wildlife refuge, and then there's Fort Sill, and they have where they do testing just like that. And there have been so many Bigfoot sightings in that area. And you can't really get to there have been some around where you can get to, but there have been more across the fence on Fort Sill land that you can't get to. And it's the same thing. It's like, to me, my theory has always been, they know that civilians aren't going to be in that area. They know whenever you guys come into that area and they need to vacate, but otherwise it's kind of a people-free zone until you guys come in. So it's safer than the wildlife refuge where us civilians go and hike and look around. But it's the same thing. They're dropping bombs all throughout that area. And
well, if I'm not mistaken, Fort Sill is an artillery training area, is it not?
It is.
Yeah, it's huge for artillery. But it's funny you should mention that, because I was stationed at Camp Rylea, which is on the Oregon coast, and we had like 15 training areas where we would do, full battle combat, engagements with op4 or opposition forces. And we'd have, of course, blanks, mind you, but we would have enemy forces trying to attack our particular TOC or Tactical Operations Center. And we would be shooting up, our M16s and back then the M60s, the 50 cals, and we had grenade and artillery simulators, and it was just, you could imagine it was just quite a melee. And like 30 minutes later, there's still smoke lingering in the air. We'd have a herd of elk come through and just act like nothing ever happened. Because again, like you were saying, they know they're safe on the base, because they can't be hunted there. No. But it never ceases to amaze me that they would, they'd eventually come filtering back in and look at you and go right back to eating.
Right. It's like they know. I mean, and so back to the intelligence part, the Bigfoot, they're not stupid. They know that once you guys come in and do your thing, you usually leave. And so, all right, well, they've done their thing. Let's go back in, and we're good for another however long, and they know patterns. They're not dumb. Sure.
They know the rhythms naturally as well, such as, the seasons. And, for instance, here in Oregon, we have a very regular fish runs. We have summer steelhead, fall chinook, winter steelhead, and spring chinook, and you could set your watch to them. And I guarantee you they're in tune with that, and they know to get down to the rivers at that particular time. They know when the crawdads become, edible, and they go down. They've been seen rolling rocks over and snatching crawdads out of the river. You know, so they know what time it is. They know what year it is. I'm sure they know when our hunting seasons are, and they lay low. And you know, it's funny. Even the deer and elk know that. I've gone deer hunting and had elks pretty much standing right next to me, like, not my time.
Yeah.
and just the opposite. Just the opposite during elk season. You'll have deer all over the place. They just like, okay, we got through it. You know, but yeah, they're in tune with nature. But they're also, you know, and I think that's why they are so inquisitive. I think that's why they watch us, because they want to learn from us. Probably more the point of our routine, so they can avoid us. But at the same time, I think they're curious about, you know, hey, they're driving these vehicles, they're flying through the air, they're domesticating animals, and that you know, just quickly while I'm on that, I told you about this place about 20 miles from here. It's called Old Maid Flats. It's on the west side of the west slope of Mount Hood, about 20 minutes from here. And there's a place called Riley Horse Camp, and I met some folks up there a couple weekends ago who ride horses. They ride endurance horses, and they go there specifically because of the elevation changes are so difficult that your common quarter horse wouldn't even do it if you wanted to. But they exercise them up there, and they've had encounters the last, well, now 3 years, because based on their encounters in the last 2 years, I wanted to go up with them this year, and they actually had some activity while we were up there. But I think, you know, they're like, I think they are attracted to the horses. Well, I think the fact that they ran up on them on horseback, similar to what Patterson and Gimlet did back in '67, is that, you know, they're attuned to bipedal versus quadruped footsteps. And you can talk to there's a lot of hunters that will actually hunt on horseback, and they can get up on animals easier than if you're on foot because of that very reason. Anything that's got its ears cocked to hear something coming, they pretty much dismiss a four-legged, four-hoofed creature, and it allows them to get a little bit more on them. And but they've had for now 3 years, about this time of year, they ride up from the Riley Horse Camp. They'll go up Zigzag Mountain, which is very steep and very treacherous and very unhospitable, and have had encounters. And even this year, they had rocks and pine cones and stuff thrown out in front of them on the trail, and which they've done every year. But I think, you know, getting back to that whole curiosity thing, I think they're curious about the horse, of course, because they're different. They're different from the elk. They're different from the deer. But I think they're really, I told them this, I think what they're really fixated on is this relationship between man and animal, this fact that they've become domesticated and they work together. And I think that's what gets their attention. But anyway,
maybe so.
I digress.
I know people, you know, sometimes when they have small dogs or just pets, it seems like that attracts attention, probably for that same reason. We don't know.
Yeah,
I just don't know.
Again, now from my experience, when it comes to dogs, and generally larger dogs, there seems to be a kind of a love-hate relationship between them, and I think it's actually based on a more primal scale. But you know, foxes, coyote, wolf, they are direct competitors with with these creatures or this species for the same food sources. And so just too many stories to not read something into it, where dogs will generally cower around them. Dogs that will stand up to bear and cougar, will cower when these things are around. Met a guy named Johnny Longfeather, real name, this Native American who was carving, log statues, carving bears and, all kinds of stuff. And I pulled in there one day and I started talking with him, and he's like, so you hunt Bigfoot? And I go, well, not really hunt them, I mean, I hunt for my keys or that one missing sock and, or a job,
Right.
It's not like hunt to kill, but yeah, I do look for them. But you don't plan to kill them? No. I said, okay, come be in my circle. And he took me in the back of this shop. I'm like, oh God. And with this kind of hippie looking guy, the dude's going like, brother, you're in. I'm like, what? So we get back there and there's like 3 wooden crates sitting in a circle on the floor. He says, come be in my circle. Okay. So we have a seat, and he pulls out this long, very traditional ceremonial pipe, wrapped in leather and deer horn bowl and feathers and, the whole gig. And then he reaches in and grabs out this vegetable material, and I go, oh dear God, I can't smoke pot. I would come to, he would do this whole thing, and I would come to find out that it was sage that he is, just blessed for the
Right.
4 corners of Mother Earth or whatever. And he says, do as I do. And he would like get this sage going, and then he would turn this pipe sideways to him and start wafting the smoke over his head. And then he handed it to me, and I did it. And we went around 3 times, and then he starts talking. He says, now your spirit is pure. Now we can talk. I'm like, okay. So I'm pretty sure I'd undone that by now, but anyway. So he tells me about this story. He says, I'm a logger from way back, and he says I used to own a wolf that was 7/8% wolf, right? And he said this dog would not cower from anything. And we were hiking one day through the Gifford Pinchot National Forest, and old growth. And he said suddenly my dog just got scared and literally wrapped itself around my legs and stood there shaking, or laid there shaking. Anyway, he says I looked in the direction the dog was looking, and there it was. It was looking at us. And he said we stared at each other for the longest time. He says I think it was almost like 10 minutes, and then the whole time the dog's like just didn't want anything to do with it. And he said finally, after some time went by, he said it basically looked at me and turned and walked off. And he said he knew my spirit was pure, and that I knew his was as well, and he just left us. And he said that dog never went more than 5 feet ahead of him for the rest of the hike. It normally would run ahead, but he said that, so I don't know. I don't know what it is with dogs and them, but I've heard way too many stories that they just, and again, I think it's kind of a primal thing that's passed along, but
maybe so. Or, my theory on it is that, Bigfoot, their main goal in life is to be undetected, and dogs are little alarm systems.
Tattletales.
Yeah, that's why I bring my dog with me. If I go solo camping, I bring my dog because he's my little alarm system. He can hear.
Sure.
He can't hear now, but he used to be able to hear really well. So much better than me. So that, and then with the coyotes and everything, I've always felt like they had a symbiotic relationship, because coyotes kind of clean up the mess that Bigfoot leaves behind. Like Bigfoot, they take down a deer, they eat what they need, and then they ring the dinner bell. Because I have so many recordings and have heard with my naked ear so many times. Bigfoot will sound off, coyotes sound off immediately afterwards, and you hear coyotes, and then like I just think they call them to come clean up the mess. Like, y'all can have the rest, and kind of clean up any evidence we left behind. And
that's an interesting theory, and I've heard the same. In fact, I've heard myself personally, vocalizations from Bigfoot, and you'll hear on occasion, you'll hear coyotes, chiming in, and I just wonder what their relationship is. If it's like the Bigfoot sounds off and they're like, all right, we're in the hood. And then the coyotes say, we're over here, we're hanging back. We heard you, and we'll wait on you. I don't know, but again, you can only imagine the symbiotic relationship that goes back, tens of thousands of years between these and the other canines they have to deal with.
Maybe so. Okay, we did have a question from the chat. Alan Lassiter wanted to know, and I'm going to paraphrase because you mainly research in one or, a general vicinity now. So where all have you researched? Have you researched all over the U.S. or?
So my main area is the Pacific Northwest, to include British Columbia and Alaska. Northern California. I have had the opportunity to research in Arizona, and I know everybody's mindset of Arizona is desert, but no, northern Arizona actually gets quite a bit of snow and is very forested and a montane scene. So Mount Pelee, the Mongolian Rim, Grand Canyon, those areas get a lot of snow actually. Most recently, now I've done some research in Ohio, but most recently, Nebraska. I was invited up by the Omaha tribe to go on the reservation, and I spent a full week there, and I saw things I'm still trying to wrap my head around. But yeah, so basically West Coast, but I have had some opportunities to get out and to different areas.
Well, that's pretty awesome. Okay, so is the 93 sighting the only sighting you've had, or have you had other sightings?
Well, I wish you would have used the word encounter, but because so encounters come in different flavors. I mean, obviously the ultimate encounter is a sighting, right?
Right.
But there's other encounters. There's encounters with vocalizations, like I talked about, and there's encounters with smell. In fact, these things are known for putting off a pretty awful smell, and I've had the joy of experiencing that. And I checked the list, and I'm good with that.
Can you describe the smell? Because there's so many, very, very many different smells that we've experienced with them.
Okay, so my experience, a guy, and I'll try to keep it short. I know we're running out of time, but I was following up on, I was investigating a sighting that happened on the Roaring River, which is a tributary that comes into the Clackamas River, kind of southeast from me right now, one of our major research areas. A guy went in with his Australian Shepherd, full-grown Australian Shepherd. He knew that about a mile upstream from where the Roaring River comes into the Clackamas, that there was a lava flow that crossed through the creek bed. And during the summer, the level of water would come down to a point where it exposed a considerable part of that lava flow, and embedded in that lava flow was what he called common opal. So he would go up there occasionally and take his metal hammer, his metal chisel, and chip out this common opal that's embedded in this lava. And so it was that day he was up there with his dog, and he just lets his dog roam freely. And he heard the dog growling, not barking, but growling, which is interesting. dogs will bark if they feel fearless, but if they feel any fear, they'll growl.
Right.
Anyway, it's growling and growling and growling and growling. The guy's like, come on. So he finally puts down his chisel and his hammer and walks up to where the dog's at to see what's got it. You know, he's thinking he's got a squirrel or a skunk or, you know, God knows what. And he got up to where the dog was at, and he looked in the direction the dog was looking, and he didn't say Bigfoot. He said, I looked where the dog was looking, and there was a gorilla. And it was standing up on two legs. It was looking at my dog, and with every breath, it was grunting. It was like, did not like it. And I don't know. I think maybe their issue is really with domestic dogs versus, you know, wild canines. But anyway, as soon as he saw that, he shoved the dog off the log because he said the dog's claws were dug into the bark of this down tree that it was standing on. He said, I shoved that dog off and we ran like no tomorrow. And he's, you know, and there's no, since the 96 floods, there's really no clear trail going up that side of the river, but he's jumping over logs and boulders and ferns that are 4 feet high, and he's running for his life. And uncharacteristically, this creature chased him. And as you know, I'm sure that's very unusual. Normally they turn and walk away, but in this particular case, it was aggressive. And it's kind of funny because he said, we're running over, you know, hill and dale. And he says, the dog would start to pass me and I grab his collar and pull him behind me. You know, it's like I don't have to be faster than the bear. I just got to be faster than you. Right.
Yeah.
So, anyway, they got to a point where there's a kind of a rock cliff that you have to traverse to get around this point. It just hangs over the river. 3-point contact all the way around. You get around, it's about 80 feet long. Anyway, he got to that point and he stopped and he looked back to see if it was still pursuing him. And sure enough, it was about 100 yards away. And as soon as they locked eyes, it charged them a second time and they scrambled over those rocks. Anyway, the smell. Myself and a friend, Steve, met with this gentleman and his dog, and this time he was packing, as were we. And so we took the same route he took going in, and got around that rock face, went along this kind of cliff, got to the site, took pictures. Sure enough, there's his hammer and chisel still laying on the rocks down at the river. So and there's a little collection bag that he had abandoned. So we knew it was, you know, that was kind of corroboration. And then he showed us where the dog was, where he was, and where this gorilla was, and we measured it at 47 feet. That's very close. Too close. 47 feet and really nothing between them. There wasn't a lot of brush or anything. I mean, he's like less than 50 foot from a gorilla.
I mean, but in reality, how fast these things move, because they have muscles that I promise we don't have. It could have caught him.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we had that conversation, and he said, I have no doubt that thing was escorting us out.
Yeah, absolutely.
He said, there's no doubt in my mind that if that thing wanted to overtake us, we wouldn't have had a chance. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. But anyway, getting back to the smell thing, we walked out the same way we came in. We were there 20 minutes, turn around, came back to this point, maybe 10 minutes on the way back. And we walked into a wall of smell. And by that, I mean, let's say somebody runs over a skunk, right? You can smell it long before you get to it. And then when you pass it, it's still in your car. You're rolling down the windows, trying to get that smell out for the next quarter of a mile.
Right.
This smelled worse than a skunk. It was stronger, more potent than a skunk. Yet you didn't smell it at all. There was no tapering. Oh, it's starting to smell stinky. It's getting stinkier. Oh, wow, it stinks. No, it was like you walked into a wall of smell.
Right.
It was so concentrated and focused in one area. I've never heard of the kind of physics that would take, but then you could take 10 steps, maybe 20 steps through it and come out the other side and not be able to smell it. It was bizarre, but to describe it, I would say if you had taken, you got in your refrigerator, found it, this chicken package of chicken was expired, and you said, "Oh crap!" Throw it in the garbage can. Unfortunately, the garbage man came yesterday, and so now it sits in there in the summer in 90-degree heat for a week, and then you go to throw one more bag in there and go, "Oh my God, this rancid, rotting meat." That's what it smelled like. It smelled like roadkill. But here's the weird thing, Lauren. It wasn't there 30 minutes before.
Right.
We
same
walked
area.
right through this area 30 minutes earlier. It was not there, and now all of a sudden it's there, and it has this property to it to where it's so concentrated in just one area. I don't know what to make of it. I we did a little grid search out in the just to I don't know why, because I knew whatever created that was gone, but I think it was pretty close when we were coming back, and I think maybe they use that as some sort of a maybe like a skunk as a defensive mechanism to try to slow you down or whatever. But holy, now I checked the block, I got the T-shirt. I don't want to go there again.
There's so many different smells, and a lot of them seem to
nothing like that.
No, I've heard of the rotted meat smell, the dead carcass smell, vomit. That was one. Fecal matter. So I'll tell you,
it's probably all of it mixed together.
All of it mixed together.
It's just.
I mean, there's just different
nasty
ones. Like the one I smell most often is urine. Can't verify that that's probably not the researcher next to me and they just don't want to cop to it. I don't know, but I'm going to go with it was Bigfoot, maybe. Urine, cow manure in Fort Sill area. You smell cow manure a lot, and in places where there's not cow manure, and rotted wood. That's whenever I'm in the Kiamichis or something like that, I get rotted wood a lot, but can't find the source of the smell.
And I've heard locker room.
Oh. I don't envy Bigfoot's dating scene at all.
No.
It's just not. So I wanted to touch on, go ahead and get into the American Primate Conservancy, because I know that you guys do your research and that you kind of one of your goals is to establish a management program to ensure their existence for future generations and all of that. So tell me about the American Primate Conservancy.
So the American Primate Conservancy, and let's just for a moment hit on primate, because I just had this argument earlier today. People think primates are monkeys. Monkeys are primates. Okay. Newsflash, humans are categorized as primates. The prime meaning primary, like prime rib. I mean, it is a classification that includes humans. So that's why we feel confident using that term, American Primate Conservancy, because it covers everything from lesser apes to humans. So, but the American Primate Conservancy was founded in 2015. It was kind of a combination of my wife's research program, which was stalking hominid research, and I had the American Primate Foundation. So I said, why do we have two websites? Why are we doing duplication? Let's just kind of combine it, and so we came up with American Primate Conservancy, and there's 5 tenets of our mission statement, which is the discovery, research, knowledge, recognition, and protection of this species. And if you think about it, it's got to happen in that particular order. It's like a clock, knowledge. Well, we're there now. Excuse me. Discovery. I mean, how many thousands of reports do we have to say, okay, they've been discovered? They're discovered a lot more than most people realize. So then research, that's ongoing. There's a lot of moving parts to that, a lot of different organizations doing different things. That's great. We're not getting a lot of mainstream science involved, and if we have time, we can touch on that. But the thing is, research is ongoing. Knowledge, data is being collected. So here's where we're at. We're between discovery, research, and knowledge, and now we're butting up against this very difficult point of recognition. And I mean recognition by a scientific body like the ICUN, the International Union of Conservation of Nature, which is ran out of Stockholm, Sweden. They have been tasked nationally, internationally, as being the go-to for the health of certain species. Are the ones that put out the red list, which has 9 different levels of from perfectly functioning, safe species to extinction. But there's 9 levels in that, not just endangered or threatened. Those are like kind of in the middle. There's a number, 9 different categories. They're the ones that are allowed to actually give the binomial nomenclature, like Homo sapien or Homo erectus, or they are the ones that actually get to verify that internationally and attach a name to a new species or subspecies as it might be. That is a hard sell, and there's a lot of reasons for that. As you know, that the whole Bigfoot show, if you will, has become kind of just that. There's a lot of, we could talk about hoaxers. I personally put them in about a 1% bracket, where some of this evidence is being found is so far off the beaten path that a hoaxer would have to know a person's going there, and B, they're not going to go that far out of the way to do a hoax. There's a lot of, misidentifications of animals. People get out in the woods, especially if they're not comfortable, and all of a sudden everything's a Bigfoot.
It's truth.
The one that gets me is the exploitation of them through commercialization, if you will, because let's face it, there's Bigfoot tires, Bigfoot campers, Bigfoot is used to sell everything from beef jerky to you name it, coolers, and the thing is, it's always done tongue in cheek. It's done as a joke. And so, all these things combined tend to give us serious researchers a black eye. Right. And unfortunately, as a byproduct of that, mainstream scientists shy away from it. They don't, their reputations, I get it, their reputations are everything. That determines whether they get that professorship, whether they work for the government or in the medical industry or whatever it may be. And a lot of them are afraid to step outside the box. Now, kudos to people like Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Professor Grover Krantz, Dr. Henner Fehrenbach, Todd Neiss, and there's a handful out there, Steiner, but mainstream science, especially people starting out, they're a little, gun shy of getting involved in the subject, but for the reasons I just mentioned. So there's a couple programs that the American Primate Conservancy is associated with. One, I was a founding member of a group called SHARE, which is Sasquatch Hunters Academic Research Exchange. And the idea was we've got all these different groups, all these different individuals out there doing all their own little things. And yeah, you can have a little mushroom group over here that consists of a couple hundred people, and over here there's another. We wanted to have a big enough umbrella that we can get them all underneath to get to do what you call a open. Help me out here. I'll get back to it. But anyway, basically a database that everybody can access,
right?
And share information. Hence the name SHARE, right? And then another one. So. And we understand that the other big divide between amateur researchers and scientists is the discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the specific discipline they're involved within, but the discipline that goes into bona fide research, the kind of discipline that gets you published in a scientific publication with the backing of at least 3 of your associates, independent of each other. The techniques, I mean, again, it's kind of like amateur hour right now. The techniques we use, everybody's kind of got a different idea. We're all trying different stuff, but if we're going to sell this, if you will, to the mainstream scientific community, you've got to step up your game. You can't expect them to come down to our level, right? Okay. So if that's the case, how do we find out how to elevate our game, if it were? So we've been working with some, doing our own research, and then working with other academics that we're learning how to develop SOPs with SHARE. I think we're, last I checked, we're about 37 different SOPs, everything from track casting to evidence collection to drone usage to what have you. And we're putting together these SOPs and making them available to everybody. And then we kind of also offer them access to the formats that scientists use. You should be able to write any scientific paper, and anywhere it says Bigfoot, you should be able to redact that and put Western Sahara red frog or butterfly, blueback butterfly, or some certain fish or whale or whatever, and make it read just as readable as if you had Bigfoot in there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You should be able to just take out, a lot of times just as a hobby, I'll be reading through National Geographic or some other paper, and they'll say, oh, we found a southern right whale that thought was extinct, and they go into detail, and I will mentally replace that word southern right whale with Bigfoot or some weird spotted frog they found or whatever. And it's interesting when you do how well it reads, because it almost makes Bigfoot sound normal, common, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so where were we? So the main sticking point is that we have another, of course, we work with the Olympic Project, some great people up there doing some wonderful, wonderful things. Another group that I helped found was the Project Zoobuck. And there we're actually, as opposed to SHARE, where we're, kind of trying to restructure our reports and whatnot to meet criteria of scientists. We're actually working with, in this case, a number of primatologists on the basis that they remain anonymous. But we have ran into actually a pretty good group, and not all from the same zoo, but a pretty good group of folks that work with primates that have secretly had interest in Bigfoot. And Amy Boo, I'm sure you're aware of her. You know, Amy's the one that kind of kicked that off, and we're actually in direct contact and have regular meetings with these primatologists. They bring their questions. They have as many questions of us as we have for them, and it's a great format, a great forum to get together with. So that's kind of where we're at with things. I think at this stage we need to be able to avoid the slings and arrows that we get thrown at us because of all the mockery that comes with Bigfooting, and try to put our reporting and our data collection in a very scientific format. And I think in doing so, we're going to be able to slowly but surely gain the confidence of other scientists out there. And that's the key. And then once we get evidence to the level where they will be recognized scientifically by the IUCN, then we can enact those protections. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, leave them alone. They don't need to protect it. They're doing great." I'm like, okay, quiz time. Raise your hand if you can tell me how many Bigfoot exist today. Right?
Right.
And I said, okay, how many existed 500 years ago? And then it's like, what is their general litter? They have 1, 2, 3. How often do they procreate? What's their lifespan? What are their resource needs? What are their habitat needs? And if you can't answer those questions, you're lying to yourself. You're fantasizing that they're just fine without us. I mean, that's a great thought, but it's not accurate. I've studied extinction in animals. We have tons of photographs, mostly black and white, some even in color, of animals that we know for a fact have existed, and they're gone. They're absolutely gone.
Right.
And we knew they were there, and mostly it was based on ignorance.
Right. We don't know if something we're doing is hurting the species, or
So we can't just based on ignorance say they're fine. We need to find out exactly, because you started off the show saying, my goal is to make sure that however rare my sighting was, that my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren have just as much, if not more, of a chance to experience what I did. And if I can't do that, I can't go to my grave without knowing I did something to at least affect something in a positive way. Because when I saw what I saw, and you have to ask why. You have to, and I have to think there was a purpose in what I was exposed to, and I think I found that through this conservancy.
I think so as well, and I love that you're preserving it for future generations. That means something to me, especially with my kids and my mission of helping the future footers of America come along in their education. So on that note, we'll wrap up the show if you'll tell me about your plans for the Bigfoot Interpretive Center.
So when we first started the Conservancy, we had a 4-phase program. One, because both my wife and I worked, myself active duty Army, and she had worked for DHS. We would have vacation time, we would have weekends, of course, and we would devote a lot of that to Bigfoot research. But phase 2 was after we retired, was to get out. Now, at that time, we lived aboard a 40-foot yacht that was rated for coastal cruising. and we lived on it in Portland for like 3.5 years before we moved up here to the mountain. And our idea was to take our boat up to British Columbia and spend an entire summer investigating these primitive wilderness inlets that go in for 60 to 80 miles that are glacier fed, and all these uninhabited islands up there. But as it would turn out, number one, we ended up selling the boat. Number two, I kind of got at least a sneak peek at what we wanted to do on a small scale. Operation Sea Monkey in 2016, September 2016, was kind of a exploratory expedition to go up into the Broughton Archipelago, between the northern tip of Vancouver Island and mainland British Columbia, hundreds of small islands. That kind of at least temporarily checked that block. I'd really like to spend an entire summer doing that. Phase 3, which is kind of where we're at now, is what we'd like to do is establish a Bigfoot interpretive center on a pretty grand scale. And we're talking millions of dollars. But what we'd like to do is, I'm sure most of your listeners are aware of Cabela's or Bass Pro Shops. I guess they're kind of one of the same now. But that kind of that size of a structure. But we want to have a meeting hall or conference center there, a theater, of course, exhibits, art gallery, laboratories, classrooms, outdoor amphitheater, and obviously administrative offices and whatnot, and got to have the gift store, right? So, but anyway, that's our long range plan. I'm trying to get to that point. I'm dealing with a lot of personal issues right now. I'm trying to get my own affairs in order now that we're both retired, and to where we're at a financial position to start chasing that down.
Right.
Obviously, it would involve other people's money. So, but we're looking at grants, donations, sponsorships and whatnot, and working maybe with the Chamber of Commerce and the state lottery because it is something that will increase tourism, and I think it's long overdue, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to getting that off the ground here, probably in the next year, at least. Get some of the legal and financial things in order, but it's going to take a little time. But that's my ultimate goal. Yeah.
But it'll be worth it. I think it sounds awesome, and I can't wait to see you guys get that going. And I'll come see you.
Okay.
Bring the kids.
It'll be fun. There'll be interactive displays and all kinds of stuff.
It sounds like it's gonna be awesome, and I can't wait for you to get that going for sure. I'm trying to think. I just want to see if there's any more questions from the chat that I didn't get to. Let's see. SoCalsk. Have you ever been out with Chris Spencer?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Not like we're dating or anything. No, I've been out with... No, Chris is a good friend of mine. He works hard up there in the Mount St. Helens area, and we're good friends. And yeah, he's got it going on. And I've been up there with him once, and we kind of test flew my drone while I was up there, and he took us into some of his area X or whatever it was. But yeah, he is amazing. Not just his forte is audible vocalizations. He does the visual spectrometry and sonic visualizer, I guess they call it, along with David Ellis. But they're doing some great things, and
sure.
he's a real hard worker, and I look forward to working with him more in the future.
Yeah, I watched a YouTube video over his long-term audio drops, and I was like Bigfoot researcher lusting after that equipment. Like it was just, I loved that setup. It was insane. So, I mean, he's definitely, he's got it going on. But Todd Hale always asks that question, and it was just,
was that Todd?
Yeah, that was Todd. He was trolling. That's what he does. And it's
hey,
Todd. Greg has a great idea for your center. He said you should put a casino in it. It'll pay for itself.
Yeah, a little easier said than done, but
it's a great suggestion, Greg.
Yeah, I'm sure it's coming.
Okay, we've got that's a great question from Alan. Is Bigfoot the only cryptid that you have researched or experienced? Or believe in?
Well, oh gosh, yeah, you just changed it up on me. I've only experienced.
I used the word experience.
So I'm going to. So last October, I spent time on the Omaha Inn and Reservation, and experienced something, some things actually. I'm convinced it was Bigfoot. I've heard of this thing called eyeshine, okay, and we're not talking about creatures shooting lasers out of their eyes, but and not even reflection, because we know cats and deer and elk and even humans will get the red eye, with a camera flash. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking organic bioluminescence that is generated similar to what a firefly can do. Certain fish, aquatic animals do. I never bought into it, but I have to tell you, I spent 5 nights in a row on the reservation. I haven't been real public about it because I am still searching for answers, but
and it's hard to wrap your researcher brain around.
Okay, so my Omaha host would call out to them. He'd say, "Oh ho, kage," which means hello, friends, and then he would say, "Gigaho," which means come closer. And I swear to God, within like 15 to 30 seconds, you'd see a pair of eyes light up. I'm like, what the heck's that? And then sometimes a second pair of lights, and sometimes we would see 3 sets of eyes. You'd see them blink. You'd see them turn left to right. You see them move left, not like a firefly. I mean, they would like move to the left. They'd squat down. They would move forward. They would move back. It was just unbelievable. And I'll tell you, Lauren, without the accompaniment of numerous vocalizations, I'd be even more confused. But what I heard, a number of different vocalizations that came from those encounters that were amazing, absolutely amazing. There's one I call the singer, and it was I can only guess it was a female. It was the first night we were there, and it let off this very high-pitched tune. I don't know. It lasted between 5 and 8 seconds. It changed not only in pitch but volume at different points in this 8-second song. And then there'd be about a 10-second break, and she'd do it all over again. Exactly every note, every change in pitch and volume the same as the first one. She did it 4 times in about a minute. And I'm telling you, it wasn't threatening. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. I wish I had recorded it. And we heard her one more time that was a Monday night. We heard her Wednesday, and she did that same little ditty, but she just did it once.
Mm-hmm.
Some whoop sounds in the middle of a prayer that my native friend said he was going to pray with them.
Mm-hmm.
Rapid fire tree knocks, extremely loud, extremely fast, 6 times. Nobody around, broad daylight. So, have I seen other cryptids? I didn't see these guys. I mean, again, we're looking at a pitch black. I did see what I'm fairly certain is were Bigfoot or something, some variant of them. But who knows? Who knows? Yeah. I've just been studying bioluminescence and trying to figure out if it exists in mammals and how we can explain this. But
yeah, well, let me know what you find out. I experienced that last week, actually, for the first time.
Did?
And
isn't it weird?
It's like what I saw was like a pale blue, almost white.
Yep.
But it was dull. It was like I don't know if you've seen the military flashlights that after you turn them off, they have that glowing ring in them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like that, except pale blue, and it was dull, and it was out across the property, and I could see 2 eyes. And my mom was the person with me, and she said that she has seen on full moon nights, she has seen actually where they not only give off a glow, but when it looks down, it lights up the ground a little bit even.
See that? Okay. Well, you'd think that would be almost self-depreciating. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you would. I mean, like for me, scientifically, I can't imagine how that would, because they have to have fantastic night vision. So I'm not sure why, biologically, why that would be that way. But if I hadn't experienced it myself, I would have written it off, but I did. And it wasn't just in that spot. There was more eye shine over here that I saw. And then I had my first ever, I'm not sure what to call it, sighting. I saw the outline of a figure standing there. I saw the eye shine look at me. It turned away. And then I saw the dull outline of a humanoid figure. And then nothing, and then I saw trees again. And it was my very first almost sighting, and I was pretty excited about it. I was like falling out of my seat trying to get closer to look at it. But it was that bioluminescent eye shine that it tipped me off, and it was like a dull glow in the dark.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because over the period of 5 nights, and we were going out, we wouldn't even go out until midnight. And we wouldn't come back in till 2:30, sometimes 3. I mean, there were times I would have stayed here till the sun came up, and he's like, "No, I got to get some sleep." But I mean, we saw over the course of 5 nights, and this actually was in 4 nights were in one place, and one night we checked out another place and still had it going on. But the eye shine was at times pretty bright. I actually shined my flashlight at it, a pretty powerful flashlight, and figured it would overwhelm their eyesight. Now, my flashlight, as bright as it was, you could still see their eye shine through the beam of light. But it would go from white to, like you mentioned, an off bluish hue. On a couple occasions went orange and almost red or dark orange, but mostly it was kind of that blue-white light you're talking about. One time we went to a place they call Hard Knocks on the reservation again, and because we weren't having a whole lot of activity in this one place, and he said, "Come, let's drive over here. It's about 4 miles away, completely different area." We get over there, and it was a rough road getting in there. And I'm driving a rental car, like, dude, don't screw up my car. and we got in. I mean, the grass was higher than the hood of the car. I couldn't even see the road. I'm like, am I still on the road? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, we got into this area where it kind of cleared out, and we turned down, kind of pointed down this one road and turned off the lights. We're there for about a minute or so, letting our eyes adjust, and then he goes, "Okay, let's give this a try." And he does his little, his call, and all of a sudden, right down in line with the direction I had the car pointed, but quite a ways off, maybe 100 yards, these two eyes pop up. I'm like, son of a bitch. I mean, whole different area.
Right.
And then we actually caught one at about our 3 o'clock trying to go behind us, but its eyes gave it off.
Yeah.
And I looked at my friend and I said, he's a Native American guy. I'm like, look at him. I go, I'm getting frustrated by this time, right? And I'm like, have you ever attempted to approach them? And he's like, hell no. And I'm like, okay, dude. I said, hold my beer.
Oh my God.
And he said, what? Well, I wasn't drinking, but no.
No.
I'm walking into pitch black. It's October, so all these oak and maple leaves are all dried up, laying in the road. I can't even see the road. I'm just crunching leaves with every step, walking toward this pair of eyes. And they're just watching me, and I disappear in the dark, and I probably got about 50 feet away when they took off. But I'm just like...
Did it make a lot of noise, or was it just...
No, they just blinked out, basically. Just,
man.
They were there, and then they weren't. I just started walking toward him. He still
so
talks
you didn't
about
hear
it. He's
anything?
like that. He's like, that white man is crazy.
So you didn't hear any kind of
no
rustling,
vocalizations,
nothing?
no at that particular place, what they call hard knocks, which apparently they get a lot of knocking activity. At that particular location, no, we didn't. I don't recall having any vocalizations there. But the original place where we spent 4 out of 5 nights, we had vocalizations almost every time, and it was phenomenal, amazing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that answered my question, but it also raised about 50,000 other questions, which that's the Bigfoot phenomena in a nutshell that I've learned. Well, okay. Thank you for coming on tonight. And I feel like we almost need a part 2 because I'm sure we haven't covered half of, all of the stuff. Yeah. So we'll have to have a part 2 and we'll make it a members only. How about that?
That'd be great. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for coming on, and tell Diane I said hi and I love her.
I will do that.
All right. Thank you, Todd. All right. All right. Good night.
All right. You have a good night. Bye-bye.
You too. Okay, everybody. Thank you for coming on tonight and tuning into the show. I hope you liked it. Please drop a comment below. Let me know what you thought about it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss all my upcoming shows. Like I told Todd, I do have a members only section where I have exclusive shows that you can only access if you're a member. So be sure to visit buymeacoffee.com/nightcrawlers and become a nightcrawler today. All of my members only shows are phenomenal content. You don't want to miss it. The last one I did was with Derek Randalls of the Olympic Project, and it is a really great show. Go check it out. I want to give a special shout out real quick to all the affiliates of Nightcrawlers Bigfoot Radio. Go check out their sites, give them a like, give them a listen, and support them. They are all awesome. First, we have Bigfoot Society podcast with Jeremiah Byron. Jeremiah puts a lot of time and effort into his content, and it shows. He is the gold standard of cryptid podcasting. So go check him out. We have Bigfoot Crossroads with Matt Knapp, also my partner on Planet Fear. So go check out Bigfoot Crossroads and then head on over and check out Planet Fear with me and Matt Knapp. Weekly drops on our shows. We do true crime, paranormal, cryptids, anything fearful on this planet. You can also check out Where in the Folk. That is on YouTube, and they do all kinds of different shows. So you guys definitely go check them out. It's a great group of guys. They're really funny, and they really get into their content. Weird Realities. That one is a Nightcrawlers production. I do not host the show, but I produce it. And that is a whole team of authors that have banded together, and they produce content it's out of this world, you guys. I learn something every time I listen to it. So definitely go check out Weird Realities and all of the things that they have going. And don't forget to support Beaverhook Productions with Logan Kraft. He is the one who is a saint and does my video editing, and just bless that man. He's super talented. So go check out all of his stuff and give him a like and a listen. So that's all I have for you tonight. Thank you again, everybody, for showing your support, coming out and listening. And you guys, I appreciate all of you. I appreciate every like, every comment, every share that you guys give me. So I just want to say thank you for that. You can go to nightcallersproductions.com to see a full list of all the projects that I do and keep up with everything that I do there. And that's all I got for you tonight. So you guys know the drill. Stay safe, be kind.